spirit is rising, she's rising, she's rising. The spirit is rising, it's rising, it's rising. The spirit is rising, they're rising, they're
Hi. Oh, welcome back. Welcome to your witch prescription for the week. It's the Missing Witches RX. I'm Risa.
I'm Amy. Hello, lovers.
We were giggling because we were chatting, as we often do before we start recording, and before we start like officially recording, and then we make the face like we're going to start recording at each other, which is like a cutie, you go first face, and then we both kind of froze there for a second, waiting to see what would happen.
Yeah, that's something that we do in our circle meetings sometimes, is like, and even in interviews, if it's kind of like a group situation, is to leave the awkward silence and see what comes up to fill it, like so many times we feel compelled, not just in podcasting but in life, in social situations, to like fill the silence, fill the silence, fill the silence. But if you're filling the silence, then you're not leaving any space for whatever gold somebody else who wants to fill the silence might drop. So yeah, we love an awkward silence, and in doing so, in loving it, we make it less awkward.
Yeah, so true. That's funny because I wasn't expecting to get to where I was thinking about going today from here, but it does make sense because so one of the things I've been thinking about doing or have been doing has become part of my like practice for myself right now that I'm throwing in the cauldron of the collective prescription is doodling. And it's like drawing me back. Like
Yeah.
I was in, so in our community, if you become a paying member, you get an invite to this coven space that we have. And some coven members started a witch and stitch group. And I went to one this week and I was just doodling and chatting with all these other fucking brilliant, cool witches. It was very, very fun. And I was thinking, like, I haven't like processed what I'm hearing from other people and my own thoughts in a drawing form, like since grad school, I think, where it was really an important part of my process. And in high school, it was an important part of me surviving. Like my brain would get so bored and overwhelmed at the same time that all of my agenda, every notebook was this like ink heavy, like ink drenched, every page with notes mixed in with, just layers of black lines and maps of people I knew and just layers and layers. And for a long time, like it started in my bedroom as a child. I would draw the wood grain on any wood piece of furniture. I would trace the lines of it or paint it. And that became an art practice. Like I had these Matryoshka dolls, and I talk about it in the next book of illustrating like my way out of a really stuck place on the bodies of these wooden dolls by following the lines in the wood. And it's just not disappeared, like submerged from my life. And in grad school, it was like how I made it through that work was illustrating conversations, drawing my thoughts, drawing the connection between one thought and another to help me figure out what my thesis was actually about. And so I've been listening to Emahoy Gebru, the Ethiopian nun in her 90s, she studied her whole life like Ethiopian choral music, and then she makes this wild transcendental jazz. So like drawing to Emahoy, these transcendental pieces, or drawing while people are talking and letting myself like take time. So I'm not always jumping in to fill space either. That's the connection for me, is like my brain kind of needed to be busy and processing on different layers of ways, but it doesn't mean I always have to be the next one to jump in and like make a joke or make a connection. Anyway, Emahoy and doodling, I'm officially adding to the cauldron for the week.
Yeah, I just want to jump in here because when you and I first met and started hanging out, that it was a big part of your practice was visual art. I remember the first time I went to your apartment, you had these like dress forms, you know, like those mannequins, and you had these pieces of clothing that you had embroidered drawings upon. Like there was like a cityscape and like,
Oh yeah. Forgot
yeah,
about that.
yeah. I mean, I thought of it when you said witch and stitch, because again, that was like one of my first impressions of you and your home, you know, which is a kind of a reflection of ourselves. But I also think, like, I'm glad that you said submerged rather than disappeared, because I mean, I'll use the example of my spouse, who has always been an artist. He went to art school and studied sculpture, and then he was a professional touring musician. And then when we got this house, which was such a project, that became the creative outlet. That was the project. And, you know, once everything was finished, he immediately sort of just went back into the studio, you know? So I think submerged is much better. Like, you have this visual art inside of you, but you've also been doing a lot of things like creating a human and creating a life. And now, you know, May is like, she's not autonomous. She's barely not a toddler, you know, but she is like becoming a person who doesn't need such constant, like your physical body to feed and nourish her physical body, all of that stuff. So it makes perfect sense for me that this would sort of, listeners, my hands are floating upward in a very slow but deliberate way, like that these inclinations would be resurfacing in you.
It's so funny too, because we're approaching the time when the lake does the great resurfacing, where the temperature below is warm enough and it switches place with the water on the top, and it's this like great regenerative cycle that happens in the spring and in the fall. So that's the image that came to mind with our practices, resurfacing and submerging. Also, it's funny you say about May, because I was drawing like a love note for her in that witch and stitch, like very much like a high school note, you know, like you're making the letters different shapes and there's stars and hearts in the letters and stuff, because I try to give her little notes. She like loves the material. She's very anchored in the material world. She'll hold a drawing to her heart. She ripped a bunch of her own pictures off the fridge to put my picture up in the middle. She's like, this is going on the fridge.
Oh, bless her heart. We all just want to make it onto the fridge.
She wanted to make sure I made it on the fridge, you know? She's so funny. But yeah, sometimes the things that submerge our practices are the same things that call them back up, I think.
And there's my segue. Thank you. I was talking to a friend of mine who is feeling downtrodden, is the word that she used. You know, it is like a social, financial, you know, like I can't afford to keep this going and that kind of thing. And for me, you know, I've talked a lot about anxiety and my anxiety, and it's like a lifelong thing that has like many ups and downs and so on. But in these certain times when I can't get down past a 6, I call it slow motion drowning, you know? And when I'm slow motion drowning, I have to think about the resurfacing, you know, about that like sinking and then coming back up to the top, because it always happens. It always happens eventually. And you forget when you're in the throes of your downtroddenness, you know, it's easy to forget that it really does get better. And then it gets worse, and then it gets better, and then it gets worse. And that's life. You know me, pros and cons everywhere. Combat boot on one foot, cha-cha heel on the other foot. But for her, I said, okay, it's time. And so I'm going to share this with you. This is the big gun. This is the song that's not just like, oh, this is what I was listening to this week, or this is what I find cool. This is the song that I keep in my back pocket for slow motion drowning, fast motion drowning, downtroddenness. And I want to also bring the story of this person, because it's part of what makes the song so amazing. So join me for the story of Martha Wash, who recorded a song called Carry On that I have been sharing with people since I discovered it 20 years ago or whatever. And I mean, I'm tempted to read all the lyrics, but it starts like, I stand alone in the eye of the storm, pressures all around trying to wear me down. But I hold tight to what I know is right. I still can hear the way my mom used to say, never give up. And again, I could keep going, going, but we'll save that for when you listen to it yourself. But the thing about Martha Wash is that motherfucker did she carry on. This is the woman who, and it's typical in the music business to have someone record demos, and then Mariah Carey or Jennifer Lopez or whoever will come and sing the track, based on the demos that the songwriter and the whoever, provided. So what happened to Martha, who started singing in the church at age 2 and then studied opera and toured Europe as an opera singer. And when you listen to her voice, all of these things are there. Like, you can hear the gospel, but you can hear like the trainedness, the technician. She has both of those. She has the joy, but also the technique of someone who's been trained in this very specific form of art. Any road, she did all these things. She was one of the weather girls. It's raining men. Hallelujah. It's raining men. She was one of the weather girls. And then she was hired as a session musician to go in and record some demos. And then what happened was some producers took those demos and used them as the lead vocals on the albums, never credited her. And en plus, in the videos, they hired a model. Twice this happened. So 2 models to basically lip sync her vocals. Her name wasn't on any of the releases, and these became big hits. So we're talking about Black Box. Strike It Up was their biggest hit. Strike It Up. But my favorite is Everybody, Everybody, Everybody. So that's Martha Wash. CNC Music Factory. Everybody dance now. That's Martha Wash. Nowhere to be found in any of the literature. But what Martha did was she sued these motherfuckers. She sued everyone. She sued them for fraud. She sued them in every way she could think of, and she won. And she won and she won. She won 3 times.
Fuck yes!
Yes, Martha Wash. So again, there's like this song, even if this song was an island and you didn't know the story of Martha Wash, you will listen to it and be uplifted and find yourself resurfacing toward the light and breaking through that top layer of water and taking a big breath and knowing like you will not bend your will. But then when you know the story of the persistence of Martha Wash, who will be 70 next year and released her last album in 2020, still making music, still doing her motherfucking thing. So yeah, this is the big gun. Carry On by Martha Wash, for me, is the song that I literally keep in my back pocket at all times for when I need like an anti-gravitational pull to pull me up through the water faster than I can get there myself. So fuck yeah, Martha Wash, Carry On, and like just an icon of persistence and an amazing talent, the voice of the late 80s and 90s, but the pun intended unsung hero of vocalists. So again, to my friend who was feeling downtrodden, like, may we lift each other, not just with song, but with reminders that you are amazing. And some motherfuckers out there are going to try to tell you different, but they're just trying to drag you down because that's where they are. Franchement, this is a fact. Some people are going to try to lift you up. Some people are going to drag you down. Either way, everybody's just trying to get everybody else to their level. If somebody's trying to lift you, it means they're fucking happy and they're confident and they're doing well. And if somebody's trying to drag you down, like, they're not happy and they're not confident and they're not doing well. So again, just like we were talking about a few weeks ago with the driver, sympathy for the scared driver. Like,
yeah.
we can have this takeaway, but we can be fueled by Martha Wash, fueled by Martha Wash, fueled by Martha Wash. That's my
Yes.
prescription.
Okay, so this is funny because I was thinking about how the main takeaway that I had from that drawing practice, especially from drawing on wood and in wood grain, is that I would repeat to myself something like, it's not an accident, it's a suggestion. It's not a mistake, it's a suggestion. So it was like, you know, when you're using these pens in wood, sometimes they'll suddenly like soak in and make a weird splotch, or they'll like get hooked up on the wood grain and like jump off from what you were thinking. And so the practice for me was really like, well, what does that become then? Like, just follow the line, just play with it. What is it next? Because I'm not trying to draw anything, so it doesn't matter if it's something different now. And that became so much a part of how I think about interacting with tools. Like I've told Amy in Stoner conversations before that I believe that like Photoshop makes suggestions to me. And I mean that in the sense that like if something is not working or something is bugging out, then that has to be a cue to me to like play differently. Like the tool is trying to tell me like, maybe this isn't the right creative choice, or, you know, turn it all off and take a break and do something else and come back. Or like, but it's like, don't beat my head against the same thing over and over again and increase my rage with myself and my rage with the tool. It's like, take the cue. Where can the pen go? Where can the ink go? How do I carry on? And so the other song for me, and this is a back pocket song for me for sure. I'm so happy you just taught me that story, and this is not the same. But I think you'll feel similarly about this song if I know you at all. It's our goddess Aaliyah. Amy's like nodding, like, yes, preach, beloved friend. Because if at first you don't succeed, you can brush it off and try again. I mean, you have to have Aaliyah in your head.
Dust yourself off and try again.
Yes.
Try again.
If you don't succeed, you brush yourself off and try again. You can dust it off and try again. It's just she made it away from that rapist nightmare, R. Kelly, who like poisoned her youth in a major way. She made it away. She fucking lived her life. She was destroyed by a pilot high on cocaine who should never have been flying that fucking plane, and she was taken from us too soon. But she was a strong person who had a voice in the world, who left us like that song. It's you could release it today and my heart would lift with joy for it. I fucking love that song.
Absolutely. Because I mean, I love this too, especially as a companion for the Martha Wash, because again, that the Martha Wash is like a train pulling, you know, but the Aaliyah is kind of like, it's fine, you know, like the beat is a little more laid back, like it's fine. If at first you don't succeed, you can dust it off and try again. Dust yourself off and try again. Like, it's all very suggestive, you know, like, you can dust yourself off and try again.
You can, you don't have to.
You don't have to. But I was thinking, and if I had known I was going to talk about it, I would have looked it up, but it's going to require a lot of search terms. So I'll post it again on Instagram or something, because I know I shared it before. There was, again, another session musician who was playing a show with, I want to say Miles Davis, and I'm sorry to whomever if it wasn't Miles Davis. But this session musician was playing with Miles Davis and made a mistake and saw Miles look at them and sort of make eye contact. And of course, this session guy's like, I'm fired, I'm done, my career is over. You know?
Yeah.
But in his description, he could sense in the eye contact that they made that for Miles, it wasn't a mistake. It was exactly what you're talking about, Risa, of an opportunity to play this differently. an opportunity to think of this differently. And somehow like Miles Davis like communicated this with his eyes and then, you know, shifted what he was doing and then probably returned to the theme again. But it's exactly what you were talking about, you know, it quote unquote mistake can just be an opportunity of looking at something differently. We
It really
love that
can.
perspective.
Yeah.
If we can get there.
Yeah. Okay. So you have to go back and tell the story of I don't have to.
Oh my
I
goodness.
can, but I don't have to.
So I hope the clip is on Instagram. If not, maybe the whole scene. If not, I have recorded it off of my TV and sent it to
I was
Risa.
going to say you texted it to me, so you definitely have it.
It's somewhere. On season 9 of RuPaul's Drag Race, there is an episode called Beverly Hills 9021 Ho, in which the drag queens are tasked with like doing like a satirical reenactment of the television show Beverly Hills 90210. And the cast is being assigned, and one queen, Aja, says they don't want the role that's been assigned to them. I don't want to play Grandrea Zuckerman. And another queen says to them, you've got to grow up and be an adult. I don't think is the exact one, but something, you know,
it's like accept the challenge and grow up and be an adult.
You've got to grow up and take the challenge. And Aja looks at them and says, I don't have to. And it's that exact, I say this all the time too. Well, I have to do this and I have to do that. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything. But I will say this, the only thing you have to do is accept the consequences of your action or your inaction. And to put a fine point on that moral of the story, Aja was, spoiler alert, Aja was eliminated that week.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to do anything except for accepting responsibility for your decisions and the choices that you make. But all the time, you know, because we have to question the system that we live under and the society that we live on. When someone says to me, I have to do this, I have to remind them, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You know, if you want XYZ, sure, you have to do this, but there's an option. If you don't actually want XYZ, then you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this.
Hardcore. I mean, it's like one of my, you know, the aphorisms or jokes or memes or whatever that just settle into your bones because, you know, I have spent so much time, like I wake up and make to-do lists, you know, like my brain just starts sorting out. Sometimes in the night I make to-do lists, but hopefully it waits till the morning, just starts sorting out more shit I got to do. It's just more shit I got to do. It just does. And so I have to be able to pull back. So I always like make the list and then sort the list. Because I have to be able to pull back and be like, no, you don't have to do all these things. Just because you can think of them doesn't mean you fucking have to do them. You know?
Yes. And if you convince yourself that you have to, and then you only get 99 out of 100 things you put on the list, and then you failed. But really, like 99% is amazing. You're kicking ass, but you're like, oh, I didn't get everything done that I had to do today.
Such a trap to make myself sick, you know, and to keep myself in like a, you know, super intense corporate kind of community, kind of corporate job for so long. And to be successful at it was just like, list all the shit I got to do and then execute, like be a machine.
Yeah.
And they're not just a machine, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. So we're trying to like create a different sense of like how to exist in the world. You know, Missing Witches is we're really trying to reinvest in our community at all times to not be the kind of profiteering bullshit that we see around us at all times.
And just also to sort of restructure our work. Like for me, it's been like, oh, I actually am a very senior professional community director. I did this for like 2 decades almost. How about I just do that here, but do it in like a revolutionized way instead of like in a way that just respects my time and my joy and my capacity. Like, how about I do that here instead of continuing to like periodically apply for jobs that I don't want and that I are just like lists of things I do not want to do. Like, how about I just do that here and try to keep it in a healthy balance with the writing and the audio making that I really want to do.
Yeah, and there are like tiny ways that we can put this into the world. One of my practices is anytime I get an email that starts with like, sorry for delayed response, I reply with email urgency is a capitalist lie.
Yeah.
And then I like, no worries. Like, you know, sometimes it takes me a few days to respond to an email because I'm trying to retrain myself out of this like capitalist lie of constant urgency. Like, it's fine. I don't have to respond to everything that comes at me today. I don't have to.
Exactly. Yes, I don't have to. I feel that kindness coming from people more and more. And I think we're trying to be really explicit about it in our community too, that like sometimes you got to drop all the balls. Like we've said on here before, sometimes you got to cancel shit. Like sometimes things get canceled at the last minute because you're sick, you need to lie on the floor, and like, fuck lying about that. I'm done. I don't want it. And just to be clear for people who are listening to this, like Missing Witches, the podcast, the books, the website, the online community, that's Amy and myself. There's no web team. There's no customer support team. There's no audio engineer. There's no, you know, we've had occasional volunteers like once or twice help us do some research, a bit more often than that with transcription. But that's really the sum total. Like we run the whole shebang ourselves. I've never been a web admin before.
God, no.
So we're taking on all this stuff and we're doing it without advertisers or outside investors, because our idea is that our investors are our members of our community and we invest in our community, and it makes a system of reciprocal exchange where we're supporting each other's space to unmask and tell the truth about these things and ask these types of questions and find each other. And so that's what we're trying to do. That's the context, if you were wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, beyond that, you know, when we started the podcast and we had no listeners because we hadn't actually put out an episode yet, and we were still in that creation phase. We talk about this all the time, that we were like, our podcast, our rules. Like Risa knows that like if she doesn't get something done in time, or I know that if I drop a ball or I can't be there, like we're not going to fire each other. Again, there's not this like constant threat of like I see all the time people are like, you know, my aunt died and my boss told me I was fired if I went to the funeral. Like, so what we're doing, you and I, Risa, and also all of us together, those of you who are listening, is like trying to create a new paradigm of what it means to like earn a living, what it means to like make a business and run a business. So we're so grateful that you're here with us, experimenting in the pre-utopia of like, you know, recognizing the capitalist lies of both urgency and scarcity. You know, there really is enough for us all.
Yeah. And to have a cottage industry of independent media and handcraft and all of those kinds of things as small businesses is not capitalism in the sense that I am anti-capitalist, to be clear.
No, like, of course. I always go back to Erica Feldman, who's like, when we talk about capitalism, we're not talking about like mercantile capitalism, like, you know, the trading post of like, you know, but I think, you know, problematicness aside, there's a great example in the TV show Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, good. We're talking about Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah. Just like let it all go and let's go back to the prairie.
Let's go to the prairie.
But the people who run the store, the mercantile, the Olsen's Mercantile, are Nels and Harriet, the husband and wife. And Harriet comes from money and Nels does not. They married and were able to start this store because Harriet had a little bit of, generational wealth. And Harriet is always trying to profiteer. She's always, if, there was like a burglar in town, so she raised the prices on all the locks in the store. She's constantly just trying to screw everyone so that she can profit and profit and profit, so that she can have, the second house by the lake, so that she can. And then we have this counterpoint. And this is the role model for our version of business and surviving and, again, earning a living fair wage, is Nels, who, the opposite. When there's a crisis in town, Nels is opening the storeroom and like whatever the town needs, the town supports us, so I support the town. And so again, yeah, when we talk about capitalism, we're talking about Harriet. We're anti-Harriet and pro-Nels.
Yeah, corporations don't get to be people. Fuck millionaires. But I'm happy to support your small business, and I appreciate anyone who supports ours.
Can you talk a little bit about Circle and the new community and why that was important for us?
Yeah. So for folks who've been following along at home, there have been a bunch of changes to Missing Witches like web existence since January. So the first set of changes were that kind of more directly affect what folks see of us online was we changed from WordPress to Ghost. So it's like one open source project to another. We really like how Ghost looks. So the new missingwitches.com hosted on Ghost. It also meant that we could build our own membership there. We had been doing membership through Patreon, and we still do that there, but we're really focusing on the membership through Circle because we keep 100% of the membership income that comes through there, which is really helpful. And it kind of streamlines some things. So that was the first piece. And then maybe 2 years ago now, Amy, a member of our community that's not Amy Torok, who's here, suggested we start a Discord. And we were having community conversations kind of here and there on Instagram, on Patreon, where we're like, sure. So we started a Discord, and that's been so incredible. Like, it sort of provides this online community space where conversations that happen in our monthly circles, those relationships can deepen, those connections and conversations can continue sort of asynchronously, and that's been rad. But there was a lot of complaints from our community about Discord, about the usability, people finding it really overwhelming, not really being able to navigate, and then complaints about some of their privacy stuff. And so we were looking at other options, and another community member had mentioned Circle. And the deeper we got into Circle, even though we have to pay for it, Discord is free. I kind of think of this, there's like many versions of this expression, but like if the service is free, then you are the product. It kind of was ringing in my head, like no one's charging us for this, so there's a reason. Like they're definitely using all their, aggregating all their user data and all that kind of stuff at Discord, which, people do and whatever. But we wanted to make like our own home base, like coven.missingwitches.com, our fucking home base, so that those connections and conversations can happen between members who are joining the Missing Witches community, really because they're looking for each other. Like some of them are looking to hang out with us more because they like the podcast and the stories, but really I think people are looking for each other. And so that's where we're at now, is the like tent posts are up in the tent, the Covenstead home it's running on Circle, but it's at coven.missingwitches.com. And I'm, we're still like taking suggestions for the structure and the flow of those spaces. There's a lot of different possibilities in there. Like there's ways for us to teach free courses to each other, and folks have voted on the first one they want us to teach, Amy, so that'll be a priority. We can have the Witch and Stitch gatherings in there. I don't know, it just feels like we're sort of slowly expanding and taking space in a new way in there. People are feeling, I think, that they can like write a post there in a way that's like not as public as submitting something to the zine, but taking the time to really think through a thought and share it with people that they trust, a small community of people that they trust to have a conversation with about some of the complexities of this kind of ethical, spiritual, practical, artistic, activist work. And maybe those pieces then become zine posts or things that can kind of move through community into more public facing things. But
yeah, it's super exciting to have a space of our own that we know is not beholden to any kind of corporate nightmare. Again, you know, like you said, Risa, we never wanted to be like that, like Catholic version of like, well, you have to get through the priest to get to God. You know, we don't want you to have to go through us to engage with each other. And that was the problem that we had with Patreon, really, was that you had to go through us to get to each other. And I'm so excited about this, basically like a new social media website for us, by us. And again, like, we want to invest in this community because we believe in all of you. We believe in you and we want to see what you have to say. It's really exciting. I hope you feel that, what Thea Anderson called precipice energy. Thank you again, Thea. I keep that one all the time too. I really feel like a precipice energy of resurfacing and busting through, getting a big breath of fresh air in the pre-utopia as we head there. But in the meantime, we carry on.
yeah.
We brush ourselves off and try again.
Mm-hmm.
We draw.
Yeah. And I will share with you this this documentary where you can actually hear this wonderful BBC journalist like go and find Emahoy Mariam, like 90-year-old nun, beautiful, wild piano, like so gentle, but so mathematically interesting. This composer, I mean, she's been studying music since she was like 6 and was sent away from Ethiopia to Switzerland to study, and like had her heart broken by not being allowed to leave Ethiopia again to go study in the UK, and then spent like 10 years in a monastery wearing no shoes, just listening to religious music, and then started composing again and moved into a monastery in Jerusalem and just studied ancient music and composes these piano pieces. And I don't know, they're so strange. They're so beautiful and so strange. So I invite you to sit with Emahoy and just draw and let your thoughts take a new kind of shape as we feel the lake begin to surface and unsurface.
And bless a fucking bee.
And bless a fucking bee.
We love you.
And we rise and we rise and we rise. Yeah, the spirit is rising, she's rising, she's rising. The spirit is rising, we're rising, we're rising. The spirit is rising, we're rising, we're rising. The spirit is rising, we're rising, we rise. I see it in your eyes.
Hi folks, it's Risa and Amy here from Missing Witches, inviting you to get involved in our annual raffle in support of the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal and Indigenous-run nonprofits wherever you live.
We have a ridiculously fun, witchy heap of prizes donated by a whole community of folks joining together to make a magical wave of reparations magic.
There's a prize pack from Jinx Monsoon.
A one-on-one tarot session with Sarah Gottesdiener.
Magic classes from Pam Grossman.
A full year of writing workshops with Kate Ballou and the Bardo.
Art pieces, jewelry pieces, readings, books, and so much more.
Make a donation to your local Indigenous support org or the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal, and then just forward the receipt to missingwitches@gmail.com with the subject line reparations before May 31st.
For every $10 you donate, you'll get one entry into the draw. Check out all the details at missingwitches.com/reparations.
And blessed
Blessed
fucking be.
fucking be.